Last night's screening of Black Mass at the Coolidge Corner Theater in Brookline was quite the scene. It was high security along the red carpet with big stars, and for some reason, they let me sneak in too, although I was about as far away from the action as you could get. One man who was in the midst of it all was WGBH arts editor Jared Bowen, who has this report.
It's downright chilling to see the icy glare and unbridled intensity of James Whitey Bulger on the streets of Southie once again. This time, however, it's only in Johnny Depp's portrayal of the notorious mobster in the new film Black Mass.
No. You said to me, this is a family secret, and you gave it up to me. Boom. Don't look to John, because he's not going to help you.
The film tracks Bulger's real-life rise to power in Boston's gang world, a feat largely made possible after the Boston FBI ignored his criminal enterprise in exchange for Bulger's service as an informant.
Listen to me, John. We have given Bulger miles and miles of leeway, and so far he's given us dick in return. I need a wire inside Angiolo's headquarters.
The film premiered locally at the Coolidge Corner Theater in Brookline, where the cast walked the red carpet. Depp offended many victims' family members with his lenient take on Bulger.
Anybody and everybody, especially the families of the victims, can say he's just an evil person. I just don't believe that exists.
Director Scott Cooper, though, said that he was at great pains to be sensitive to a community still living with the consequences of Bulger's murderous reign.
I didn't in any way want to glamorize or romanticize or glorify anything that he did. I just tried to, and I wasn't even making a gangster picture, but I was trying to make a human picture.
Black Mass is based on the investigative book by reporters Dick Lair and Gerard O'Neill. Lair says Depp's transformation was unsettling.
It was disorienting and also creepy because he was occupying some middle ground between Johnny himself and the role he was playing between takes or something. The whole body language was still Whitey, the swagger, the look.
To capture Bulger's rogues gallery of lieutenants, the actors, including Jesse Plemons, who plays henchman Kevin Weeks, say they settled in Southie.
We got here about a month before shooting, and myself and Rory Cochran, one of the other actors who plays Stevie Fleming, we luckily were able to make some friends in South Boston that really, their help was just absolutely invaluable.
Actress Dakota Johnson says her charge was more nuanced. She plays Lindsay Sear, the mother of Bulger's only child.
I wanted Lindsay to be able to maybe bring out a different side of Jimmy Bulger. I wanted her to be kind of a soft spot for him, and maybe it'll make the audience think, what are all the different aspects of this guy, because he's so cold and he's so dark.
And who is so much a part of Boston lore, now getting his own Hollywood ending. Jared Bowen, WGBH News.
Joining me now are two men who have lived through different parts of this real-life story. Jay Carney, who defended Bulger during his federal trial here in Boston. Jay, good to see you. Peter Gelzinis, columnist for the Boston Herald, who's lived his whole life in South Boston and knows all the players. Peter, good to see you as well. Can I start with you? You're the outlier here. I've spoken to a ton of people who have written about this, followed this for years, virtually all of whom thought the movie was terrific. You didn't think so. Why?
I thought that it would have been better if less was more.
What does that mean?
The best scene in the movie was the steak scene, the scene that Jay and I talked about months ago, where he is understated but terrifying. I think there was too much, stomping on the face, too much shooting in the head, too much of the stuff that people were expecting of a quote-unquote monster.
All of which he did.
All of which he did. Well, he did, but I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more character development. Certainly by a lot of the other people in the movie. One
last thing before I get to Jay. For those who said, we heard this a minute ago, glorify, like the director said, we're going to glorify all this. I mean, this is not like Tsarnaev on the cover of Rolling Stone, where a lot of people thought he looked like a movie star. This guy is portrayed as a psychopathic serial killer. Is he not? No empathy, no sympathy, no glorification at all, right?
No nuance. I mean, I think he was also, in a weird way, kind of nuanced. I mean, that mask he wears is terrific. But that mask is circa 1981-82, straight out of Lancaster Street, which you see at the end of the movie. He never ages.
Jay
He
Carney.
wears that mask right to the end.
You met him as an old man. You didn't know him before, right?
I never met him before the day I was appointed to represent him.
Can you see the man you knew in the character Depp portrayed in this film?
Sometimes. And by that I mean he was a very complicated individual and had very, very many parts to him in terms of his character. He could be extremely intelligent. He was phenomenally well-read, especially history and biographies. He could be a raconteur and tell a funny story.
Was there any humanity, other than a little bit of a scene where he has a little boy who dies prematurely, other than that, a little bit of tenderness there, and helping an old lady get her groceries in, which is sort of the mythical story in South Boston, the Robin Hood deal. There's no humanity in this guy at all. Did you see any humanity in him?
I saw a lot of humanity in him. And one of the reasons is because he was so in love with his girlfriend, Catherine Grigg. And
the woman he was found with in Santa Monica.
That's right. And he was prepared and offered to plead guilty to every single charge in the federal court and agree to the maximum sentence he could get.
He saw humanity. Can I just repeat the
Well, that's the problem of the movie.
What's that?
She's not in it. Neither is Teresa Stanley.
So you want more humanity. I mean, he had two girlfriends at the same time, Stanley and...
Right, exactly. And you would have had more of a picture of that. More of that nuance I was talking about if you had seen his interaction with either one or both of those women.
So you see
the woman with the baby, was a story that came out years later. And I think they arbitrarily grafted that onto the tale to quote unquote, humanize him.
Yeah, but you're suggesting, I mean, the line we just heard from Depp out on the line, families of the victims can say he's just an evil person. I just don't believe that exists. You seem to be agreeing with Depp, and you do too. I mean, you know the Bulger brothers.
No. He was evil enough, but I'm saying he was evil in various ways that weren't as stereotypical as what you saw in that movie.
Were there liberties taken in this thing? I mean, obviously there's artistic stuff all the time. I mean, for example, the scene with both Bulger brothers and two FBI agents. It turns out it wasn't in the Bulger house. It was in the Fleming house. The head of the FBI regionally was a composite figure. Forget that stuff for a moment. Were there liberties taken that you think manipulated the audience or things that made you uncomfortable, Jay Carney?
Yes.
Like what?
Well, the Whitey Bulger part of the story is actually the small part of the story in my view. The large part is the way he was able to stay on top for 25 years was because he had the FBI on his payroll. This was the story that the federal government wanted to tell, that Bulger was an informant and there were only two corrupt apples, John Conley and John Morris. The truth is, Bulger had 30 people on his payroll. He paid them for information to be told when there was going to be a search warrant.
But in no way are you suggesting that he's not a killer, that Moderano's not a killer, that Weeks is not a killer. See, you wrote beautifully. Can I tell you something? My favorite columns that you wrote during this whole thing, when you talked to families of victims who said variations on what he said. I'm troubled that the people not sitting next to his client as a defendant, or as the FBI themselves. And watching this film, at least I got the sense there was this noble FBI leadership that was taking on John Conley and Bulger. That's not the case at all.
Not only that, but when you sit there and you realize, when you see Whitey trying to tell Stevie that it's good business to join the FBI when Fleming had been an informant, 15 to 20 years before Bulger, and actually convinced Bulger of the wisdom of this, then you realize, I mean, for me, it's hard to get past that. For the popcorn public, they won't care.
Did you know Whitey Bulger?
I didn't know him personally.
But you know Bill Bulger quite well.
Yeah.
And this is a story about an unholy brotherhood, I should say. What did you think about Benedict Cumberbatch, Mr. Sherlock Holmes' depiction of the former Senate president and UMass president?
I've known the president for over 30 years. And the only thing that I really saw that was like the president was a little bit of a wave in his hair. But the person of great intelligence, integrity, public service, that didn't really come through.
But there was an
much.
intimation here, too, which you're not touching on, that Bill Bulger knew a lot more.
I don't think that's true.
You don't think that's true?
I do not.
The guy who should have played Billy Bulger was a guy who played Mayor Carcetti in The Wire. That guy would have been terrific. He was an Irish actor who was about Bulger's
stature. You didn't like Cumberbatch either?
When you realize that there is so much video of Billy Bulger's greatest hits at the St. Patrick's Day breakfast, did you see that scene at the St. Patrick's Day breakfast?
In the movie, yeah.
It was ridiculous.
A tribute to Ireland or some such
That
thing.
never happened. That never happened. There was none of that wit. There was none of that, that edginess.
Without violating attorney-client privilege, do you still communicate with Bulger?
No.
So you don't have any idea if he's seen the movie or no, he hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
If he's happy, unhappy that it's being made, if it's stroking his ego, none of that kind of thing.
I'd say that it'd be a little of both. He would hate the story because so much of it suggested he was an informant or the FBI were the good guys. But I think Johnny Depp's performance was riveting. His ice blue eyes staring at the audience.
Contact lenses.
Made the hair stand up on the
like
back of my
Hannibal
neck.
Lecter in a lot of ways. Did you feel weird being, it's not like an out-of-body experience for you in some ways, that young guy depicted as the guy who you were charged with defending? Was that not a strange experience?
I'll tell you what was stranger. I met with Johnny on 2 occasions
Depp.
on the set,
Yeah.
Johnny Depp, and sat across from him at a table when he was in full makeup. And I'm talking to him, and he's talking like he did in the movie. And at one point, I remember saying to him when he got kind of angry and leaned in on me, and I said, be careful, now you're starting to scare me, because Jim Bulger was the same way when he was angry at 83 as when he was angry at 43.
He calls him Jim, I should say.
I thought it was the best mask he's worn since Edward Scissorhands.
I only have 15 seconds left. For the victims' families, some of whom are saying too soon, shouldn't happen, they're making money on this. Where are you on that?
I agree with them, but there's nothing they can do. This is out of their hands.
But the book wasn't too soon. If the book wasn't too soon, why is the movie too soon?
Yeah, but the book is now 13 years old. I mean, the thing is, it languished for a while before it was picked up. And I think they understand that Whitey's now a commodity. He's a piece of merchandise, and there's nothing they can do to really stop that.
10 seconds.
The most amazing thing that happened to me in the trial is when the victims' families realized that when I was trying to bring out the truth with Hank Brennan about the corruption in the FBI, I was fighting their fight. And one day I came out and spoke to one of the victims and said, I'm trying to bring the truth out. And from that day forward, the victims continued to hate Bulger, but loved what Hank Brennan and I were trying to do.
That's true.
You wrote about it beautifully.
I wrote about that.
Jay Carney, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Jim.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Peter
sir.
Gelzinis, as
Thank you.
always.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Boston Herald.